Hi, I'm Shanti, the artist behind Shanti Fine Arts. If you're following me on social media like Facebook and Instagram, you might have noticed that I'm doing a month-long everyday art challenge. And you must have also noticed showing a couple of time lapses doing these coffee paintings of these cute birds. So I thought I'll take this a step further and do some more research and work on painting with coffee. So today is all about art challenge painting with.
Before starting on to the actual art part with the coffee, I have to admit to you guys that I am a big lover of coffee. In fact, I should admit that I am a coffee addict. Many of my mornings are just saved by a pot of coffee. Sometimes I even think that an intravenous coffee transfusion would be very good in the mornings just to get me started with the day. But this is not about drinking coffee or my love for coffee or what kind of coffee I like. This is all about how can I make art with coffee. So I brewed a pot of coffee, and this is just regular brewed coffee and a pretty strong brew. But if you look at the very tiny globs that you see on the corner of the paper, if it is at all visible, those are the streaks that are created by that strong pot of coffee. And no matter how strong a brew of coffee I made, it did not get any better than that. And obviously that is not good enough to make art with. That's no matter how many layers of that I put on a piece of paper, it's not going to show, it's not going to work. So I had to think of a different option. So I got these coffee granules. So this is just instant coffee. They come in a bottle in these granules, and what I'm doing is I'm adding the brewed coffee into it. You can even add water to it, and I'm adding very little water at a time. Like I'm just picking up water with a brush tip and adding, so that it does not get too dilute, because I don't want it to dilute. Making it dilute is not difficult. I can add water or a little bit of the thin brewed coffee, and I can make it dilute. I want to see how strong lines I can get, how dark lines I can get. And the less amount of liquid I add to the coffee granules, and the darker it gets. And obviously with adding water to it, I can have like a whole range of shades with this coffee granules. So I was all set to work with the coffee granules. And that's all about it. And for some reason I think that even no shade of brown in your watercolor will give this kind of a dark brown color. This is very unique with coffee, the color that it does. And obviously because you are using a brush for application, you can choose a thin brush or a thick brush and create thicker lines, thinner lines, details, whatever you want. So that way it's very easy to work with. Now on to my first painting. I'm just painting a simple flower. When I start any kind of when I experiment with any kind of medium for the first time, flower is a very simple thing to start with. And in this case I'm painting a daisy. I'm doing a negative painting first. So what I'm doing is I have wetted the surrounding area around the daisy with water, and then I'm putting the coffee in different areas. And you can see that I'm adding different concentrations of the coffee solution in different areas, and that creates kind of like a variation in the background. I'm not trying to get it very nicely blended or anything. I just want like a background covered like a negative, like you do in a negative painting, all the negative areas of the painting covered with some kind of paint. And I can always come back and add more paint and create more details and create more variation in the background. Now onto the flower. You can see that I started with a pretty strong concentration of coffee, and then I added water to it and kind of blended it out, made it less prominent, and then I added more details or spotting while the surface was still wet, and to create the textural look in the center of the flower. And then I am doing the petals now. It works almost exactly as watercolor does, and it is just like watercolor, so that even after the paint has dried, if you put water on top of it, it gets reactivated. It is you would think that the amount of coffee stains that you have in clothes and the difficulty you have removing them, you would think that coffee painting would be pretty permanent, but it is not. When you put it on paper, it works as almost the same as watercolor. So no matter how long it is dried, as soon as you put water on it and carefully remove it, and obviously the concentration of the coffee also does matter in this case, it kind of picks up most of the paint that was deposited previously, and it is not permanent like acrylics. It is very much like temporary, like watercolors are. So yes, if you are going to use coffee, it's better to use it like you use your watercolors. It behaves very much like the watercolors. But the color itself, it makes me really happy. I don't think there is a shade of brown in watercolor that will give you such a beautiful color. And obviously, after trying a couple of birds that I shared on Instagram in the time-lapse videos during the February art challenge, and also this daisy flower, I had to do a portrait, and because I thought if I do a quick sketch kind of portrait, that will help me test how well this works, how well it blends. And like you see, I'm just working just like I would work with my watercolors, and going from light to dark, dark to light, depending on the area. And since this is just an art challenge, trying to see what works and what does not, I'm not trying to create a very perfect portrait here. I'm not going into great details, or I'm not trying to make it look really nice and blended. I'm just trying to see whether I can work with this element and make nice artwork. And yes, as long as far as the beauty of artwork is concerned, it works wonderfully. So going on with this topic, the only thing that I personally feel is the drawback of painting with coffee is that I don't think this is an archival art material. Coffee is obviously not developed or created to create art with. So in the long run, I don't think this is going to be permanent or light fast or archival. So if you paint with coffee, and if you it will definitely fade over time. And I tried to do a lot of internet research to see whether there is any way to make it light fast or archival, and I couldn't find any. So if you can find something, do share with me in the comments so that I come to know how I can make coffee art permanent. That would definitely add more value to these paintings, because unless it is permanent and archival, you cannot create art that you can sell with it, or anything of that sort. Not that I want to sell everything that I create, but just for the sake of talking about how to make coffee with art and pros and cons about it. So this is the only con I could think of, is that it is probably not archival. Other than that, you can see that it works beautifully no matter what subject matter you choose, and even just in a few minutes I could create a pretty decent portrait. So that obviously says how good this works. So that's pretty much the end of the video, and I hope you like this coffee challenge, and do try painting with coffee yourself. You will enjoy it, I promise. And let me know how you felt like. It is something that you have available at home, so do give it a try. Thank you.